So, a month ago, I went to my first conference in 5 years, I think.
Really?
I used to go to conferences all the time before the pandemic started, and I realized that I had lost the habit.
Right.
Up until that point, I'd pushed myself very, very hard into public speaking positions. Whenever there was something at work that needed a presentation, or if there was a club at work where people would bring little presentations and talk about things that they liked, I would force myself to do them because at one point I was really, really scared and terrified of doing them. Sort of exposure therapy.
Yeah.
Throughout my working life, I've tried to do these.
And that's conferences, is it?
Right. Whenever there's an in-person thing. It started out small in just volunteering for doing a presentation on the work we were doing, something like that. But by the end of the 2010s, I was speaking at Clojure conferences, specifically Clojure X in London. The first time I just had a lightning talk in my back pocket. And the next year, I actually wrote a specific talk for Clojure X. Clojure, by the way, perhaps some of our listeners might not know, is a Lisp programming language. It's the one with all the parens. It's based on Java. It's the cool one, if there is such a thing as a cool Lisp. But
say people that use it. Yes.
Yes, right, exactly. Of the Lisps, it's perhaps the coolest. The first talk I did at Clojure X, I actually repurposed into one of my Rust videos, one of my very early Rust videos. The first slide is, "Have I got a deal for you?" And it was about how great Clojure is.
Right.
Because Rust and Lisp are so similar in many regards, I was able to reuse much of that into a Rust talk.
I mean, careful, you're at risk of exposing your patterns. I mean, you're like, Clojure, wonderful, it's the best thing in the world, everyone should use it. Rust, wonderful, best thing in the world, everyone should use it.
Right. I mean, if tomorrow I find a new language that's better than Rust, I will start talking about that. There's just been nothing left. Oh, I had to look it up because it's 7 years ago. Turtles All the Way Down was my Clojure video. And then
I do remember that.
3 years ago, right, I rewrote it into Rust Turtles All the Way Down.
Yeah.
Because really I'm talking about the macro system and how you can build on the language without anyone's asking permission.
Yes, I mean, basically what you're saying is it's really nice to have something that's sort of written in its own language. Like it's a whole system language, basically. It's like, you can create the pieces, the fundamental building blocks, and then you can build up on them, and it's all within the same syntax.
Right. Yes, exactly. Like the way you write a Python stack is you build very fast plumbing in C,
right,
and then you call those modules from Python.
Exactly.
And that's quite a good way of doing things. Really, it's a good separation of concerns, but it comes with drawbacks. I won't rehash the turtles analogy. But I was doing all of this before 2020, and then either the pandemic, or maybe just becoming somebody who does online things professionally. Like I just fell out of the habit of going to conferences. Like I'd worked so hard for 15 years to develop this. I suppose now that I'm saying this out loud, maybe my itch had been scratched by doing the videos on YouTube. So
maybe. Can I just? I was curious.
Please.
I think I don't know if I've ever been to a conference that I organised that I did independently from work. So for me, the reason why it dropped off, if I were you, would absolutely be because I no longer had an employer to get me to go to conferences. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. Like you're no longer sort of in the zone, surrounded by people who are talking about the conferences that they're going to.
Well, and also you have probably like a budget, and there's some pressure, and there's people from your company that might be going to the same conference and that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I hadn't thought of. And there's probably a lot of small, little reasons, but the big reason that I want to bring up in quite a very personal way is that I think I was like becoming a shut away introvert more than I already am. This presumably didn't happen to you as much because you were still working with other people, talking to other people, even virtually, whereas I'd cut all of that off, and my days, which I'm very pleased with, it's a great privilege, are spent quietly working on the things I want to do, not talking on Slack and in Zoom meetings, which was a freaking dream. Lovely.
I mean, I think you're actually kind of more comfortable with that. I feel like you're better at both ends than me, in that you seem both, even back then, I think you seemed certainly better than me at deciding to create events you were going to, and so you'd always have schedules, you'd always have scheduled stuff, and you had this ability to sit for a morning and work on a thing. And I feel like I've become increasingly worse at both. And I think that the pandemic has played a huge role. Like, yes, I was working, but I was working remotely, and my work, which became 100% remote after pandemic, or during pandemic and then afterwards. And it was very difficult to come out of. And I've been to one conference since the pandemic, and that was Lead. Is it called Lead Dev? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think I've heard of that one.
Yeah. And it was great. It was wonderful. But it was with my new company. I can't go this year because I couldn't go this year. I think because it would. Yeah. I think it clashed with an important thing. I don't know. But yeah, like I feel similar to you. Like, I did have a rhythm of going to conferences, and I haven't stopped working. Like, to me, it doesn't coincide with massive change in my working patterns, but it does more coincide with having my second child. So
that'll do it.
yeah, that'll do it. But I also definitely went through the same.
So it was a huge surprise to me that this suddenly was on my radar. I wasn't speaking or anything. I was just there as a participant, an audience member, and it was super last minute. I was doing some audio work for Amos from Faster Than Lime. I don't know if I have spoken to you particularly about this, but this is a fellow YouTuber. I feel like we're all colleagues on YouTube because we're not competing with each other. If someone watches one of my videos, they'll go over to a Faster Than Lime video afterwards. If I'm doing my algorithm right, I compliment myself enormously by assuming that. And this is the person who, my second Rust video, I asked if I could borrow one of their blog posts to just kind of make into a video, because I had no idea what I was doing. Maybe my third video, maybe the second one, I was okay. Rust in 10 minutes is based on Amos's post. Anyway, so we've always been in the same circle, and we have become professional and personal associates. That's a weird way of saying friends. We have become friends, and I've moved them from one category to another in my mental database. And as our listeners probably will now know, the project that I was recording is Amos's videos now contain a cutaways or added dialogue by a character called Cool Bear, and that's me, voiced by me. Amos has always had them in the blog posts. They're these little inline cutaways where the Cool Bear says, "Hey, what's with this code block? Why does it look like that?" And that allows a very interesting narrative. Is it a Socratian dialogue where you ask questions and then immediately answer them?
A Socratic dialogue, I think, is where you make a point through the mechanism of having a sort of master and a student conversation.
Right.
I
Got
think.
It. Okay. Yes. Exactly. Okay. Good. So something like that, except that it's two masters perhaps talking to each other, or they switch roles. And so it was really fun to record this character, because it's very definitely a character. I tried to do a certain voice, leaning really into my British accent to make it even funnier. And it's been very, very good. Anyway, Amos and I were doing this recording, and at the end of it, as we were chatting, Amos said, "Are you going to Utrecht next week?" And I was like, "No, I'd love to. Why do you ask?" And I didn't even know there was a conference going on, because they'd just fallen off my radar. I remember, like, in 2022 or 2021, I was thinking, "Oh, I should go to these Rust conferences. I'm a Rust YouTuber." And then I just forgot about that, and just like it just left my brain. So I get tickets with 1 week to go, 6 days to go, I think. And suddenly I've got this ticket, and I'm like, "Oh no." So I check the hotels, they're €300 a night. Oh my God. I check the flights, they're not great. I also don't like flying, but I check the train is affordable. Like, it was it was really expensive because of how late everything was, but I don't regret it for a second. Whatever no boilerplate budget I have should be spent on this sort of thing. This is exactly the sort of thing that I should do more. Like, it's a, like, spoiler, I had a great time. I took the train. It's always lovely leaving England by train. I wonder if our people in our audience might not know this, but we have exactly one high-speed rail system, one high-speed rail section in all of the UK, and it's from London to the ocean. It gets you out of the UK. You can leave really quickly.
Yeah, that's the fastest bit because it has to interface with the European rail, which is better than the UK rail, and so we had to do it European grade for that bit. Yeah,
exactly.
Which is quite funny. But I wanted to just step back a half step.
Yes.
You were saying you wanted to use, if you had no boilerplate budget, this is what you'd use it for. Presumably you mean by that you think that what you got out of this conference was like particularly good, like supportive of the no boilerplate project.
Absolutely.
Is that right?
It was wildly good. Like, right. I suppose some people might, maybe some companies or YouTubers or whatever might do advertising. Like, there was a lot of commercial stuff, as there is with any conference, but I don't think I want or need to do that. What I got out of it was inspiration. Like, it was so good to see all these incredible programmers, like absolute ninjas. Like, there was a teenager hacking on the Linux kernel and like telling us all about it. Like, this is so inspiring to see all these cool people in our Rust community. It was so inspiring that on the train home, the train is 4 hours from London to Amsterdam. On the train home, I just wrote another video and then published it a week later. Like, on the way there, I just published my Writing is Thinking video, or Writing at the Speed of Thought, I think is the title. And I wanted to get that published just before the conference, just to make sure that people remembered who I was. It'd been over a month since I'd done everything. I'm slowing down my schedule as the videos get like more complex, which is good and bad. I'd like to do like small videos and long videos just to keep things fresh.
Yeah, just throw one out every other day, and then in the background you're doing your 6 monthly.
Well,
release.
That's what I'm doing. I'm finding that I've got these smaller videos that I'm pushing out, but in the background there's the big projects. Like, at the moment, I've got a video that the draft title is A System for Thinking. A System for Thinking. I think that is what I'm going to go for. And it's a big topic. Perhaps we will speak about it later on, like Obsidian task management, PKM, Zettelkasten, loads of stuff. And it's a big topic. The video that I'm pushing out, hopefully next week or the week after, is on async programming in Rust. A much more straightforward topic, at least in terms of deep creativity required. It's more of an explainer. It's more of an opinion video, and it's nice. It's a nice tight turnaround. The video I wrote on the train back to London, was my last video, which is just Oxidize Your CLI #2. Like, it's a carry-on video from it's a carryover video. That's not what we call it. A sequel. That's what we call them. It's a sequel to a video I made a couple of years ago with like, hey, what tools can you replace with Rust? And it's way more impressive now. Like, you can replace the entire userland of your Linux machine, like the head program, like tail, grep, like all of these GNU tools have been rewritten in Rust, and Ubuntu has got an optional like switch for it. Did you see this? That Canonical pushed out a very simple one-line change where you can swap out your userland tools with the Rust version. Did you see that?
I basically haven't used Ubuntu since I left Canonical. Maybe not quite. Maybe since I started my new job. But I know. I mean, I'm so far from knowing that level of detail on what's going on in Ubuntu.
There was some hand wringing involved.
Really?
Because you've got the GNU tools. They're like decades and decades of slow iteration. They're extremely stable. There's 600 or so unit tests for the whole suite, and then you've got this upstart Rust project that, in the space of a year or two, is now, I think, 550 of those 600 acceptance tests for the GNU tools are passing in the Rust version. And there's still plenty of work to be done, but I just switched my whole userland to them on my NixOS system, and I've just not noticed any difference. Like, everything's working fine. Like all of the maybe I think that they were very optimized before.
Not faster. Well, but like I use ripgrep, right? Ripgrep is way faster than grep. Obviously, it's got a slightly different interface. Maybe I'm missing some key difference in the actual feature set, but like, are there not similar speed improvements that can be made simply, not necessarily because it's written in Rust, but simply by starting from the ground up with your with how you're actually solving the problem? Maybe.
I bet there are. And the biggest one is Rust's fearless concurrency. Like you have to be extremely cautious and careful, and you have to know what you're doing to write concurrent and parallel programs in C. And it requires a lot of thorough testing, and it's extremely challenging. Whereas in Rust, it's trivial. So a big speed increase is that there would have been, I'm guessing, but I think I have a good idea. You can get loads of low-hanging fruit that the C developers just didn't want to touch.
Yeah.
Like you could make these 5 threads. You could make this little inner loop here. You could parallelize it if only you wanted to. And in certain circumstances, you don't want to. You don't. It's not that you can't do it in C. It's that the initial reaction is, "Oh, I better not," or maybe I'll do that later. Like
yeah, absolutely. No, how difficult something is, like makes that difference in a huge. But it sounds like you're basically saying that efficiency, that speed of doing these difficult things, like in C, they can be done and they are done and they lead to very efficient programs, but it takes a long time because you are carefully considering it, designing it, then you're testing it really thoroughly, etc. In Rust, because they've got some core mechanisms that mean that the testing, like, it's not so brittle, it's not so dangerous. But that's not so much led to a suite of much more performant tools. Instead, it's led to very, very quick meeting of the same standard, if you know what I mean. That's what it sounds like.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah. Right, exactly. It's exactly the same happened with the Linux on ARM project, or rather the Linux on Mac project. Like Asahi Lina wrote the GPU driver for the MacBook in like 10 weeks. Because she wrote it in Rust. Like you get a huge speed up because you're not firefighting all of the time. It's quite straightforward. What I say in my videos, I think bears repeating. These things are possible in other languages, but in Rust they're easy. Yeah. Like that is a very, very big level.
They're easy once you've understood the mindfuck of Rust.
Yes, the borrow checker. There's one thing to understand. Yeah, exactly. And I suppose that the type system, but like if you can understand Java's type system, you can understand Rust. It's just a bit more complicated.
No, I think it's the borrow system I'm referring to. Yeah, I haven't got my head around it.
That's because you've not watched my video on the borrow checker. Like it's so trivial.
That's the reason.
It's in no other.
The only reason. Yeah.
it's in no other language. That's the thing. The borrow checker says that you can have as many read-only references.
Don't need you to teach me now. You should carry on your story. If we wanted to have a episode about you teaching me Rust, we can. But let's do it as a different thing.
I'm making a note. Future episode: teach Robin Rust live on air.
Yeah.
Okay. So the second problem with rewriting everything, the GNU tools in Rust, I think probably is this suite of acceptance tests, the unit tests, the GNU acceptance tests. Probably you can break acceptance tests with parallelism or with concurrency. Like the tests might not be written assuming that it's going to be parallel or parallelizable. So I bet there are some places where they can't do it because the goal is 100% feature parity, and then perhaps improvement.
Yep. No, that makes sense.
So, I don't know why I talked about this.
Well, you were talking about the Rust conference. I'm not quite sure what got us onto that detail of Rust.
It's because on the way back, on the train back, I was so inspired by the conference that I just, like the words flowed out of my fingers onto the keyboard, and I just wrote for 4 hours continuously and had another video ready to go by the time I got home. It was just, it was wonderful.
Well, I would suggest,
inspiration, I think.
If you wanted to repeat that experience, I would suggest the train ride is as important of an element of it as the conference is, because I completely agree with you. Like after every conference, my brain is exploding, but I don't normally have a 4 hour train ride to then, do nothing but write it within, which would probably be quite, it's quite a good mechanism.
It sure is. My plan for this coming weekend, I'm going back down to see my parents, which is another 4 hour train ride, so my plan is like I'll finish the current video that I'm working on, the script, in that train ride. So I agree. Love a train ride. Bad Wi-Fi or bad 4G plus nothing really to do.
Yeah.
That's good for productivity.
Yeah, no, I mean,
so
that really sounds awesome. Like, I'm quite jealous.
So I mentioned very briefly when we were talking about the conference that I have a lot to say about Obsidian, PKM, Zettelkasten, so forth.
Well, you said you've got an upcoming video.
Yeah, I do. Yes, the system for thinking.
Yeah.
It's related to my previous video, how to write at the speed of thought. Like it's all going around in my brain, and like there's this big idea that I'm working on, and small videos, small ideas are kind of falling out of it, almost as a side effect. But it's not the main idea. The main idea is this system for thinking video.
Yeah.
The title, I'm sure you'll recognize, is the title is inspired by A System for Writing, a book by Bob Doto. I'll make sure that the link is in the show notes, which is a recent discovery of mine, and I think is the best book on the Zettelkasten method. I think I recommended it to you.
Yeah, I think I've, if it's the one you recommended, which I admit I don't remember the title of, then I read probably a third, or I think I was... it's like I had a plane ride, right? Plane ride? Do you call it a plane ride? Do you ride a plane?
Oh yeah, you don't ride a plane, do you?
Do you know what?
A flight?
Yes, I had a flight. Indeed.
Oh, fun.
It's a shorter way of saying it, isn't it? I had a flight, and I spent most of the flight reading the book, and then I think I might have had even like a train ride afterwards or something, and I was reading the book then, and I was taking notes and all this sort of thing. But it certainly hasn't flowed into... I suppose my impression of it from the book, which I didn't finish, only got as far as it helped me, it ever so slightly augmented my use of Obsidian, like for general note keeping. But I certainly am not following like a general unification system of like thought in my Obsidian use so far.
A grand unified theory.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me about your Obsidian use.
Right. Yeah. Well, so it's always been a bit... I don't think I'm a person who can... Like, I've seen how you use Obsidian, and I feel like yours is like a world building experience. Like you've got different colors for different parts of the day. You've named like areas, rooms, within your schedule, like, the library where you're going to do your reading and this kind of thing. So it's like, when you're stepping into it, it's like you're inhabiting a world that you've built. And that, I think, makes it so much more tangible for you. And it also means that that because it's a whole project that, and a significant and impressive looking project, it makes it easier for you to then to really care about refining it, I think, and making sure that it's tidy, right?
Yes.
Now, I doubt I'm able to do that. I think I tend to have too many parallel things that I care about in my mind at any given time. And my use of Obsidian is like, I'll only use it, and this is also kind of the way I work, but I'll only use it where I think I can do something quick that doesn't have to be perfect, and it nonetheless adds something. So I use the daily notes system. For a while, I tried using weekly notes, and I rejected that. So I use the daily notes system, and I've got it so that I've set up a little template so that every time I create a new note, it links back to the daily notes system. It's got a little set of, standard front matter. I've got some categories in there. But it's like the whole thing is set up with the understanding that every one of the systems I'm using are going to have massive number of loose ends, right? Fundamentally, it's a place for me to just throw information in such a way that if I came back and wanted to find it again, hopefully I could, right? It's more or less that. So then I write down tasks I want to complete in future in there. I start new project documents, which I may or may not return to. And I use the system in my daily note of I link through to what I think I call, important documents or something, or I can't remember what the word I use is. But a lot of, so a lot of it is like, I've only got a collection of about 6 documents that I consider to be high enough importance that they're there in my face for every daily note. And that includes my priority tasks document, which I will throw stuff into when I think it's an important task. But I've never, ever managed to have the habit of being like, oh, okay, I've got some space now. I'm going to go and look at my tasks list. I'm going to start at the top. Like, that never happens. Sometimes I've accidentally done one of them because they came back around in my mind and I cared about them, but I never ever follow the tasks. from the top. So my use of, and I keep a journal in there and stuff, and it's all linked up. But my use of Obsidian is like that. Like it's lots of different patchworky things that I cobble all together, and it helps me that they're all in one place. But any serious structure or any serious routine that's well kept to is an emergent property of me using Obsidian rather than designed, if that makes sense.
It does. And I struggle with this as well. I think I recognize everything that you're talking about, and this is where I was 5 years ago when I started using Obsidian. These things don't, like, it doesn't just come naturally. It certainly didn't with me, and it sounds like it's not with you either. And I think that's okay. And I think that's, like, I want to reassure you, and maybe I reassure our listeners, that this is not something that comes so quickly. And like, my extremely complex use of Obsidian running 80 plugins is not something that happened at the start. In fact, in the first year, I stopped and started using Obsidian all the time. Like, I bounced off it. Like, I thought it didn't fit my brain, and I went back to Todoist or org mode or whatever I was using at the time. But I kept coming back to it because there's something there. There's something in the app.
Well, I want to say that, I'm a step beyond that, right? Because Obsidian is my default place to keep information. I have it on my phone. I have it on my computer. I know how to put stuff in there, and I will have confidence that I know where it is, right? Like, it's not like I'm still in the phase of like, oh, I'm half using Obsidian, but I'm still not sure whether it's for me, and so I'm half using this other app, right? Like, I am using Obsidian exclusively.
Great.
Yeah.
Then, so you're sort of a year or two into it, just as I was a year or two into it, and I still, to this day, have this problem of, like, the divine self and the mundane self, like, constantly fighting. Like, I imagine tomorrow that I'm going to be super organized, and I'm definitely going to follow this whole checklist that I've made, and then tomorrow comes and the plan goes out the window. But I feel like the exercise of doing it and trying to make the plan and trying to follow the plan every month or year, even, it's a very slow thing. The ship slowly moves a degree to the right. You know, I'm getting better slowly.
Yeah. Well, that's my experience as well.
And there's a metaphor that I thought of recently because I'm writing the System for Thinking video, and I hope it is useful. What am I trying to say here? The metaphor is that you're trying to throw a ball forward in time to yourself tomorrow, and you want your future self to catch the ball and carry on doing the thing that you're hoping. Maybe it's like a relay. You're passing the relay baton through time, and you're hoping that yourself tomorrow will pick it up and carry on running.
I think I prefer the catching metaphor, because I think it's really good, because the relay, I feel like it's more inevitable in the metaphor that it's going to happen. Like, it might happen not as quickly as it should, because then you'll lose to your opponents, but it'll happen. Like, it's not hard. Passing a baton is not difficult, whereas catching a ball is potentially difficult.
Okay, good. The catching the ball metaphor is the one that I've got, and I second guessed it when explaining it to you, because you can drop the ball. You know, like you so forth. So there are two parts of this equation, and you've got to have a lot of trust in both. So the first one is that you've got to be able to capture the things you want to do in the future, but you can't do them yet. And that's the capture side. Like, in GTD, it's called the inbox. In Zettelkasten, it's called fleeting notes, and all kinds of stuff. Very similar stuff. It's just like, write down the thing you want and trust that you're going to put it somewhere where your future self will at least look at it.
Yeah.
They will at least see it. You make this half of the equation makes no assumption that they will do anything with that, but at least your future self will see it. It's on the calendar. It's in the task.
Well, this is why
email
all the tasks that I actually care about, I schedule as calendar events now, like I was explaining.
Right. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Because you don't trust that this system will put it in front of the eyes of your future self. Yeah. And that does slowly improve over time. The second half of the system is tomorrow's self, your future mundane, profane, whatever it's called, the problem self, that guy in the future who's not going to do what you want.
The bastard.
We all have. Yeah, I know. Always ruining, like, he's spending all of my money. Wait, no, am I spending his money? I forget how it goes. So it's important that, so they've got to catch the ball and then carry on doing the thing that you want. So you need to have a system that not just stores the notes carefully, that you're sure, yes, this is categorized right, or I've captured this, wonderful. Then you have to be able to pass it over to your future self, and it has to be surfaced. For me, this is quite a recent thing. I've got a combination of two techniques that seem to be working very well. And this is definitely going to be something that's part of the video. I take fleeting notes, which are just new notes in Obsidian with a reasonable title, like, buy the milk, go out and get this, call Robin, what have you. Anything like that, anything that comes to mind.
Yeah.
And I put that into the system with the tag fleeting, and then my job is done. The inbox has been satisfied, and I'm confident that it's out of my brain, and I can trust the system to work, because it does. The next day, every day when I sit down to do my morning writing, I start with 1 hour of admin. I can't just start writing Lost Terminal or No Boilerplate straight away. Like, I have to sort of get into it. And a way that I have found, I used to get into things by just browsing the internet, like we all used to. Maybe I'd check my feeds or check Imager or check my email, whatever. And that is very dangerous, because it can take you down a rabbit hole, and then half the time I wasn't writing when I should be.
So yeah, much more than half for me.
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. But what I found is that admin, specifically Obsidian admin, and making sure my Obsidian inbox of fleeting notes is processed, and I can optimize the process a little bit to do some tweaks, stuff like that to make it enjoyable. Allowing myself to do that has been really good, because I've guaranteed to myself that the tomorrow Tris is going to read every single fleeting note I write today. And not just that, but the way that I read these fleeting notes, I'm very proud of. I use to solve the problem that Bob talks about in A System for Writing, the Zettelkasten book that I recommended and you have read. In fact, if you've read the first third, you have read this. He describes some fleeting notes can't be actioned, and so they must have a different category for snoozing them. He calls them sleeping fleeting notes. And every now and then you go through that list and go, oh, can I do any of these? Are any of these relevant yet? Sleeping. And I started off just doing that, tagging them fleeting sleeping. But then it begs the question, well, how do you know when to come back to them? And this system, it already exists and is called spaced repetition. It's usually used, as I'm sure you and our listeners know, for language learning or knowledge learning. These are flashcards, Anki, Duolingo. These are all spaced repetition systems. But I use it for fleeting notes. So when I drop a fleeting note into my system over the course of the day, the next day I cram, in the terminology of spaced repetition, I cram all of my fleeting notes. And so I see every single one of my new ones. And then I decide on each of them if I'm going to just do them, or get them out of the way, or send that email or whatever, or put them into a to-do, or schedule them on the calendar for today. Something has to happen. Yeah. And if I don't do that, or I don't want to do it today because it's not super urgent, I just say, I just tell the spaced repetition system that I've studied this and this was hard. Remind me of this again tomorrow.
Oh, okay. So you're recording a difficulty metric out of how it's like things that are written, but is hard necessarily right? So the thoughts that I'm having while you're saying this is that one of the fundamental problems, I think, with my task, my task setting for myself in general, is that I think of so many things, like so many more things I could be doing that I never have time to do. So it's a version of the, when you're working in a software team, the backlog is infinite, right? The backlog is always going to be longer than whatever you might have time for. So you need to have good prioritization, because you need to make sure you're doing the things at the top. And what I really like what you're saying, in the sense that you're sort of skimming this long list so that you're refreshing your mind. So you're keeping it available to you, and then you have the complete freedom to choose the things that jump out within it, to say oh, that's actually something I'm going to do now. That's actually important. But you don't need to worry about the fact that you will be reminded, so that if it was something super important, you haven't just like put it on a list, forgotten about it, and now you're never going to look at it again. And then 3 months later, you're like, oh my God, shit, I really needed to do that. And I just never came back in, I never looked at my list, right? So you're saying at least it's going to come back in front of your eye, and then you can choose to highlight it. But presumably some of the things, like firstly, has a scaling problem, because if we assume that you're making more notes than you could ever do, this list is going to get longer and longer and longer until presumably it's not even skimmable, right?
Sure does.
And then the other thing is if you just said every time you said, oh, actually I'm not going to do that now, it increased its difficulty. It's not necessarily because it's not difficult, right? Some of them, or because it's difficult. Some of them it might be because actually they don't matter anymore, or it's like, I'm never going to. In fact, I would say most of the things, like if you think about it in terms of like how you might work in a software team, or how my software team works, lots of things come in. We choose certain ones of them to prioritize. Anything we haven't prioritized, probably we really should just close or delete or whatever, because it's not going to happen because no one cares, right? Like, so there's a lot in that category, I would imagine.
So this problem of scaling is the problem that all inbox systems have.
Yeah.
Like once you've got more than a screen full of text, of emails, of to-dos, it ceases to become a useful, skimmable inbox. And it just becomes kind of too much to handle, and you declare bankruptcy and switch system back to something else. And then that system fills up, and then there's too many events on your calendar, too many tasks on your task, whatever system you chose. The reason that I think misusing spaced repetition for this purpose works geniusly is because it's extremely granular. Snoozing something until tomorrow is a pretty good way of managing your current day list. Snoozing things to next week, yeah, that works too. Like you can decide, well, how urgent is this thing I'll snooze in? This is an algorithmically perfect way of doing that. When you use spaced repetition, you get one card. It shows you one card at a time. If you were using Duolingo, it'd be one word at a time or a phrase or whatever. But here, it's a fleeting note at a time. And I look at that fleeting note and I critically think to myself, what is this really, really urgent? Or is this something I can put off a little bit or put off a lot? And in the Obsidian spaced repetition plugin, which I use and recommend, you get 3 buttons: easy, medium, hard. Or it's actually easy, good, and hard. Good's a bit of a weird word, but whatever. And all those do is they say, oh, don't increment the reminder day to a bit more in the future, or increment it to be a little less in the future, or make it really, really urgent, and I actually want to see it again tomorrow. This is obviously the spaced repetition algorithm, where hard things you revise more often, easy things get pushed exponentially into the future because you've already remembered them. You're okay. I think that is the same algorithm that I want for my fleeting notes, because if I look at a fleeting note and it's not something that I really care about, it doesn't seem very urgent, I'll just rate it as easy, and then I won't even see it tomorrow. I'll probably see it the next day or the day after that. When I am shown that again in a few days' time, I also think, wow, this is not important still, then it pushes it even further into the future, and it might take a week. So it's a non-date-based snoozing system that I don't have to think, when am I snoozing it to?
Yeah.
What am I doing? Whatever? It's just solved it. I think I could now have 10,000 fleeting notes at various states of snoozing that the system is just keeping track of.
Yeah, I like that. But I suppose by thinking that it's very, very scalable and it can hold a lot, I would suggest there probably is still a limit to how much it can hold. You like, how would it scale? One way it could scale is that it starts to delay tasks longer and longer, so that you don't get them. So you can imagine it scaling in that way, right? Because if like 1,000 became 10,000, it's just that that you see each of them less frequently. But that's not necessarily acceptable, right? So it still has a scaling problem, I would say. And so the piece that I'd want to make sure was built into it somehow was this idea of deleting, closing, getting rid of things that actually don't matter anymore. But maybe you think that just happens automatically. Like, obviously, if something really doesn't matter, we're going to get rid of it anyway. So it doesn't need an extra solution, because I do already do it.
Yes. Yeah. That is the workflow. Like, after I've done something, let's say the fleeting note is like an interesting turn of phrase that I think might work really well in one of my podcasts that I'm writing. I will just copy it, put it into the podcast note, and delete the fleeting note. Then I'll never see it ever again.
Oh, yeah. No, of course you would delete fleeting notes. I just meant it's the action of like having a brain fart one day and being like, well, what about this? Throw it into the system. Tomorrow or next week, it comes back up and I'm like, actually, you know what? I'm realistically never going to do that. Get rid of it. And it's that I'd like to reinforce, because I think there is a lot of value in it's like, yeah, it's a Yagni philosophy. And that's not exactly what Yagni means, because Yagni is about building software, but to me it's important for the same reason, right? Like you could build an infinitely complex software system. You don't do that because that's terrible engineering and it'll probably never be released. So you under-design it, or you don't under-design it, but you design it right down to the basics.
Yes.
I particularly love the sound of being able to snooze without thinking when. Like it's really annoying to have to like decide when.
Yes. A separate problem that Zettelkasten solves is when you're taking a note, you shouldn't have to think hard about where it goes. When you're just writing something down on the back of an envelope, or you're just quickly putting something in, any friction is bad friction. Like you're just going to get that out of your brain on there and then forget about it because you trust the system to bring it back at the correct point, which for me are these morning reviews. And that's what this does. Zettelkasten is a bottom-up system where instead of saying, okay, like in Dewey Decimal, this goes in science, natural science, chemistry, organic chemistry. These are already way too many decisions. Like imagine if you had to do that every time, nightmare. Whereas in Zettelkasten, because it's bottom up, you clip it straight to, let's say, benzene, and you put the note right under there. You don't have to go all the way down through whatever hierarchy you've got. You just go straight to the edge. And I think this achieves the same sort of goal, because you're not thinking, well, when am I snoozing this to? And that question is actually very complex and requires knowledge of your calendar, or at least thinking of your calendar. No good at all.
Well, of course there are. I mean, so you see, what I find interesting here is that you're talking about Zettelkasten, which is a system for ideas and writing. And I'm talking about task management. We seem to sort of naturally fallen into an idea that they're the same thing, which I had not considered before, that they could be the same thing, really.
They aren't, but they're very related. They're related. The reason I'm conflating them is because we are talking about the input, the inbox, the fleeting notes.
Yeah.
And that is unified in my system. And in fact, I would recommend that anyone who is building a second brain or a PKM system for themselves only have one inbox. Doesn't matter whether those are fleeting thoughts or tasks to do, your inbox must be just one place, because two places is one too many already. This is a very old idea from David Allen's GTD book. The grandfather of this inbox idea is that if you have two inboxes, let's say your email, ancient history, before YouTube, therefore it's very old.
Yeah.
If you have two inboxes, your eyes can only look at one at once, which means you cannot fundamentally trust what your eyes are telling you. If your eyes are saying, oh, my inbox empty, but I've got this other inbox here. Let me just check that. Oh, that's empty too. But maybe I've got a new thing in the first inbox. You've got this subtle, like subconscious unease that actually maybe you're supposed to be doing something. So one inbox, genius idea. That's why I'm unifying these two.
Yes, except that almost makes it more interesting. Are you saying that notes for Zettelkasten are tasks? Or not? Because if you have one inbox, doesn't that mean you have a Zettelkasten inbox and you have a...
No, just fleeting notes are just strings of text. Those strings of text have to be interpreted by Tris tomorrow, and then he will decide whether or not to make a task in my task management system or to write up something else or what have you.
So they are the same thing. They start off as the same thing.
Yes, the inbox is unified.
Right. So you have one inbox which has a list of notes, and a note may be a task, or it may be a thought, be a idea.
The reason I'm pushing back against this is I deliberately don't decide at this point.
Yeah, no, sure.
Whether or not it is a task or a thought.
Yeah, no, but so it's quite. So I suppose I think you're saying that they are the same thing in every, like just about as far as I could possibly imagine they might be, if you see what I mean. Which I like. I mean, it's a nice idea. The bit where I'm going to fall down
start off as ideas.
In reality,
right.
The bit where I'm going to fall down is that you say the place where you're going to where you bring these things back up to your future self is in their morning routine of going through the inbox. But that doesn't mean, I mean, I do have an inbox. I do go through it every now and then. So I'm not going to fail completely.
I don't think you should go through the inbox. I think you should set up the space repetition system to go through this inbox for you.
I know, but what I mean is the space repetition system for you, the point where you read the things that have been brought back up by your space repetition system is when you're sitting down and looking through the list of things that your space repetition system is bringing up.
Right. That doesn't happen for you.
I have, yes. I don't think I've ever had a routine like, I just about managed to brush my teeth daily.
Yeah.
But my wake up and sleep times don't tend to be regular. And so I don't think I can ever say that I've had like a string of as much as like a week or 2 weeks where I have at roughly the same time every day sat down and done roughly the same task per se, apart from stand up at work, which you don't really have any choice. So I mean, I don't think, obviously, you can't solve all the problems of my life with one system. And as I say, I have inboxes, and I do still manage to live as an adult, just about. So this wouldn't be worse, right?
No,
but
indeed,
you are a
indeed.
more routine person than I am.
Only recently, Robin. Only recently, like in 2020, before Lost Terminal, I had no morning routine. Like as you say, I like cleaned my teeth, and I probably had breakfast at some point because my body was hungry. But like the start of this was my first habit, which was I've got to write Lost Terminal before work. If I don't write it before work, I'll be too tired after work. So it must happen before work. Therefore, it must happen. It's like you taking your kids to school. Like it can't not happen. It absolutely must happen. And my baby, Lost Terminal, had the same scheduling problem that these things had to happen every day.
Yeah.
So I was actually forced into that.
Yeah.
And then after like a year, I had this morning routine of like sitting down and writing. And then I could like hang things off it. You just need that one thing.
No, I agree.
That first little habit.
But the interesting thing there is you described Lost Terminal as your baby. With an implication that that's part of how you manage to do it, which is very insightful. I mean, you're absolutely right that the most routine things that I do successfully are my children's routine because they need routine, and I know that, and I care about them. And it's that caring that I'm really sort of curious about, because I also feel like my life is improving significantly recently, and
Great.
it is in taking charge of it, which is a version of caring. It's like caring about myself. It's like I'm taking the time to think, what is it that I really care about? And so that makes such a significant difference. So really it just needs something to trigger me into believing this routine supports my core values, right? Like that's what it is. And then I would do it, right? So it's probably not as far as we're saying. So anyway, I really like the system. I'm curious. I don't think you should maybe go into it further now because this will get long. But I'm curious about how you configure your scheduled something, whatever you called it, that system.
Yes, the space repetition system. Well, you and I can talk offline about it, and the listener will eventually be able to watch my video on it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Oh yes, well, so will I. So maybe I can just, if we don't manage to follow up on it, I can just watch a video and then I'll know. Yeah,
it's perfect.